Hello and welcome to In Depth. I'm Tina Jha. The aviation industry in India has emerged as one of the fastest growing industries in recent years. India is currently the third largest domestic civil aviation market in the world. It is expected to overtake UK to become the third largest air passenger market by the year 2024. But despite this significant growth, the aviation industry in the country is reeling under crisis. The second largest airline, Jet Airways, is under severe financial distress, due to which it has grounded as many as 78 planes and withdrawn close to 1,000 scheduled flights. The airline is now operating only 33% of its fleet. Other carriers, SpiceJet and IndiGo, are also facing shortage of aircraft as well as pilots. Today in In-Depth, we analyze the health of the Indian aviation sector, in particular, the recent crisis faced by Jet Airways and other companies. India's second largest carrier, Jet Airways, is facing its worst ever debt crisis in 25 years. It has delayed payments to its pilots, suppliers and lessors for months and defaulted on loans subsequent to an intense competition, weak rupee, as well as rising fuel costs. It has grounded several of its aircraft and is operating with half of its fleet. This has led to numerous flight cancellations, consequently leading to soaring airfares. Debt-ridden Jet Airways is sliding deeper into distress. Etihad Airways has refused to step into the shoes of promoter for the troubled carrier. Instead, it has asked Jet Airways' top lender, State Bank of India, to buy its 24% stake in the cash-strapped airline. Etihad has sought 400 crore rupees for its 24% stake in Jet Airways, valuing Jet shares at 150 rupees apiece. This values Jet Airways at 18,000 crore rupees. In addition, Etihad has also offered to sell its 50.1% stake in Jet Privilege to SBI and other lenders. It has also proposed that SBI become a guarantor for the $140 million loans taken by Jet from HSBC. This could add to Jet's woes, as it will find it difficult to pay the $109 million tranche it owes to HSBC on 28 March. The company has already defaulted on the first tranche of $31 million, which was to be paid on 11th March. Jet Airways has already defaulted on loan repayments, grounded a majority of its planes, delayed payments to most vendors, including aircraft leasing companies, and delayed salaries to its employees. On 18th March, Jet informed the stock exchanges that it will default on interest payments on its bonds that are due on the 20th of March due to temporary liquidity conditions.
Well, I think Jet is now getting into a very critical situation, and it's only a miracle which will enable it to come out of this crisis, because if you see the way Kingfisher collapse took place, they also kept on doing the holding operations for a long time. Firstly, Vijay Mallya kept on saying that the strategic investor is coming, even the government changed the policy for it, and eventually no investor came because the losses had reached a level which were very unsustainable. The Jet losses today are almost 20% of their revenue, and the passengers are losing confidence, so the advance bookings have almost dropped down considerably, and because of that there is a very severe cash squeeze, and to bring it back to cycle is a very massive task.
At present, the airline is operating with half its original fleet and managing only about 200 flights a day, which is half of its normal schedule. Jet has also discontinued all flights to Etihad's hub at Abu Dhabi, cutting off the Gulf carrier's traffic feed from India. Due to non-payment of salaries, the airline's Aircraft Maintenance Engineers Union has sought DGCA's intervention. In a letter to the aviation regulator, the Jet Aircraft Engineers Welfare Association said they were unable to meet their financial requirements that has adversely affected their psychological condition at work. adding that the safety of public transport airplanes being flown by Jet Airways across India and the world is at risk. Due to massive flight cancellations by Jet Airways in the last few weeks, airfares have increased significantly, much to the inconvenience of passengers. In the wake of the unprecedented crisis, Civil Aviation Minister Suresh Prabhu has directed his ministry's secretary to hold an emergency meeting. The Civil Aviation Secretary has also been directed to get a report on jet compliance issues immediately from DGCA. The Jet Airways crisis is a stark reminder of the fate Kingfisher Airlines met in 2012. In a similar fashion, the now defunct airlines posted losses, struggled to pay salaries, and had a huge debt pile, which ultimately led to its complete closure. Another airline, SpiceJet, is facing a massive shortage of aircraft. After the DGCA's decision to ground Boeing 737 MAX planes due to safety concerns, the carrier is in dire need of at least 12 aircraft. Another budget airline, IndiGo, is facing a dearth of pilots. Even though the airline is expanding its fleet, it faces the huge challenge of tiding over the existing crisis in the cockpit. According to a research, the country has over 7,963 pilots and will require an additional 17,000 pilots in the next 10 years, of which 9,000 first officers will be upgraded to commanders. IndiGo currently has 3,100 pilots on its payroll. That number is 38% of all pilots recruited by domestic airlines. It has 1,250 captains, which effectively constitutes for over 31% of the 4,000 commanders in service. But in order to meet its demands for overseas flight path, the airline needs more pilots, co-pilots and commanders to handle the operations.
In many cases, the aircrafts are being bought even without pilots. If you realize what IndiGo underwent recently, where they cancelled 30 flights every day, essentially because they did put it on schedule and they didn't have the pilots. So the industry has to self-regulate.
But the lack of sufficient pilot training centers and inefficient training infrastructure in the country, it is proving to be a major hurdle. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Two fatal air crashes of Boeing's top-selling aircraft in the last 6 months triggered an aviation crisis across the world. Fearing more catastrophes, countries across the world grounded the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft from their fleet. While the US authorities are probing any lapses in clearing the new anti-stall system of Boeing's newest aircraft, the tragedies have focused the world's attention on flight safety and related issues.
A plane crash that killed 157 people. The Ethiopian airline aircraft crashed near Addis Ababa minutes after takeoff on March 10th. The crash came just a few months after October's Lion Air crash. That aircraft crashed into the Java Sea shortly after departing from Jakarta on 29 October 2018. The similarity in both crashes was the Boeing's fastest-selling aircraft, the 737 MAX 8. With rising concerns that the crashes may have been caused by a new software Boeing added to the modern version of its jet, several countries banned the Boeing 737 MAX jets from their skies, even cancelling their orders with Boeing.
The Boeing 737 issue has been quite widely discussed in last 10 days, and if you have seen the two sudden crashes of the similar nature which have shaken the confidence of passengers and the regulatory agencies and the operators, so the aircraft has to be grounded and the aircraft fleet is now undergoing evaluation about its safety standards.
China was the first one to suspend commercial operations of all Boeing 737-8 airplanes just a day after the crash. Indonesia and Ethiopia followed suit and grounded the aircraft. Within a few days, over 50 countries, including the UK, European Union nations, Argentina, Canada, and many others, banned the aircraft from their skies. Surprisingly, action from the United States, home of the aerospace giant Boeing, came at the very end. On 14th March, US lawmakers said that the Boeing 737 MAX 8 and 9 planes will remain grounded for weeks at a minimum, until a software upgrade could be tested and installed in all of the planes. The next day, Boeing suspended deliveries of 737 MAX. Meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Transportation has begun investigating the Federal Aviation Administration for its approval of Boeing 737 MAX. The DOT is looking into whether the FAA used appropriate design standards and engineering analysis in certifying the anti-stall system. Boeing's new software MCAS is suspected of playing a role in the recent crashes. The MCAS is designed to automatically point the nose of the plane downward if it is in danger of stalling. As per reports, Boeing designed the MCAS to use readings from only one of the sensors, even though the aircraft has two sensors. Pilots appear to be struggling with the automated system designed to keep the plane from stalling. Reports from the Lion Air crash have also revealed that the aircraft was not airworthy and should have been grounded.
It's a security issue. I mean, all the two major accidents that took place with the 737 MAX, and that clearly showed that what are the problems. I mean, as soon as the plane is taking off, it is creating all sort of trouble. Now, I believe that Boeing is taking some sort of precautionary measure, but the problem is that all across the world, all the airlines have grounded Boeing 737 MAX. So it is burden not just for the Boeing, it is also burden on the airlines which have taken B737 MAX. Boeing is working on that. Some security issues, some safety issues are to be, not the security, some safety issues are to be taken into consideration. Some changes are required in the configuration. I believe they are doing so, and hopefully after some time, say 2 or 3 months, these planes will be in a position. But as of now, the situation is not very clear that when these planes will again be flying.
And now black box data from both crashes indicate clear similarities. According to the flight data recorder, the pilots of Lion Air Flight 610 struggled to control the aircraft as the automated MCAS system repeatedly pushed the plane's nose down after takeoff. In the case of the Ethiopian flight, the black boxes have been handed to France's BEA Air Safety Agency. Meanwhile, Boeing's shares continue to tumble as the world remains concerned over the safety of its aircraft. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for a very short break on the program. On the other side, we analyze the overall situation of the aviation sector in India. Do stay with us.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira, at 6:30 p.m.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
हम संख्या बल के सामने सर झुकाते हैं और आपको विश्वास दिलाते हैं कि जो कार्य हमने अपने हाथ में लिया है वो जब तक राष्ट्रीय उद्देश्य पूरा नहीं कर लेंगे तब तक विश्राम से नहीं बैठेंगे।
मैं नरेंद्र दामोदर दास मोदी ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं।
देखिए हमारा विशेष कार्यक्रम चुनाव का सफर सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
सुंदरता कोरिया के लोगों की जीवन शैली में शामिल है। सुंदरता उनके मन में है और सुंदरता उनके हृदय में है। मैं हूं अखिलेश सुमन और अभी हम हैं सियोल के ब्यूटी वैली में। हम आपको दिखाएंगे क्या है ये ब्यूटी वैली और क्या होता है इस ब्यूटी वैली में।
तो लेजर का प्रयोग हुआ मेरे चेहरे पे। My face was confronting with laser.
हर वो आर्थिक फैसला या नीति जो तय करता है विकास की गति, कैसे और क्यों लिए जाते हैं फैसले, क्या होता है इनका हम पर असर। देखिए अर्थनीति शनिवार शाम 7:30 बजे सिर्फ राज्यसभा टीवी पर।
Watch the big picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira, at 6:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching In Depth. The Indian aviation industry has suffered a double blow. Already reeling from a lack of profits, the industry finds itself having to deal with a shortage of flights after the grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft.
In March this year, aviation regulator DGCA grounded all Boeing 737 MAX in India. So did China, Indonesia, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Netherlands, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, Canada and the US. The fallout has seen a severe shortage of aircraft, delays and flight cancellations. Airfares have escalated, all at a time when rising fuel costs and shortage of pilots have put global airlines under pressure to manage operational costs.
Well, to begin with, this sector has largely to blame itself and the government policies. The first thing, they've been going for very unprecedented expansion. Every airline has been adding literally 10 to 15% of capacity and sometimes even more. And if you really look at it, the year 2018 alone, we have added over 100 aircrafts, which is almost the industry size of the Indian aviation in 2001. So because constantly we are adding more and more capacity, it is resulting into people, you're trying to chase the passengers to fill up your belly. So there is a price war going on. So the yields have come down considerably. It has though resulted into substantial passenger growth. When we are recording the highest growth of passengers anywhere in the world today. And then coupled with it is the problem of fuel pricing. The fuel prices in India, as you know, are the highest anywhere in the world, and it's a very irrational pricing government has been following. So because of this fuel pricing almost on a very unrealistic level, the industry is suffering very considerably.
It has been a huge blow for the Indian aviation industry that is already reeling from high aviation fuel prices, excessive parking and landing charges and even fare wars. Indian carriers are estimated to lose as much as $550 million to $700 million in the year 2020. This comes on the back of an estimated $1.7 billion loss for the year ending March 2019. Experts point out three major reasons for the falling profits. The first is the rupee's depreciation that directly affects an industry that has to make 25 to 30% payments in dollars. These include payments for aircraft lease rents, maintenance costs and even ground handling and parking charges. Aviation turbine fuel costs also form a huge chunk of the charges at 40% compared to 20% for foreign carriers. The third factor is the Indian market itself. Higher growth has unleashed intense competition among domestic carriers. In a race to capture a slice of the expanding market, airlines are forced to keep passenger prices low and are hit hard when they are unable to do so. The fallout for passengers has been equally severe because of lesser number of flights and fares arising. Equally, there are the hardships arising from delays and cancellations. For the industry as a whole, the debt is expected to rise to about 61,000 crore rupees in March 2019. Globally, the International Air Transport Association or IATA estimates the profitability of the aviation industry will be $35.5 billion in 2019 as against $32.3 billion in 2018. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation estimates India's air passenger traffic has grown at least 16% annually in the past decade. In 2000-2001, it was just 14 million passengers. By 2017, Indian airlines were flying nearly 140 million passengers, most of them domestic. It is now the third largest aviation market in the world, outstripping the US and even China. Traffic is expected to grow 5.5 times in the next 2 decades, but all that growth has been largely profitless. 2016 is reported to be the first year in a decade that Indian airlines saw a profit, but that too has been short-lived. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us in today's edition of In Depth. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a focus on some other subject. You can also watch our episodes online on YouTube and Twitter and send us your feedback and suggestions. Thank you very much for your time.